Lisa McClain shut down Ilhan Omar's victim card play instantly.
This debate today, it's about who gets to be an American. What opinions do we have to be counted as Americans?
Right from the start, she's framing this entire congressional debate as an attack on her identity rather than her actions. This is a classic victim narrative strategy. Deflect from the actual issue by making it about discrimination. What's happening here isn't a debate about who gets to be American, it's about accountability for specific statements and actions. But Omar immediately pivots to identity politics, claiming there's this idea that you are a suspect if you are an immigrant or if you are from certain parts of the world. She's setting up a straw man argument before anyone even responds, trying to paint any criticism of her as racism or xenophobia. The reality, Americans across the political spectrum support legal immigration and diversity. What they don't support is elected officials making anti-American statements while representing this country on the world stage.
Accident that members of the Republican Party accused the first black president, Barack Obama, of being a secret Muslim. Well, I am Muslim. I am an immigrant, and interestingly, from Africa.
Omar continued with, well, I am Muslim, I am an immigrant, and interestingly from Africa. Is anyone surprised that I am being targeted? Here she's doubling down on the victim narrative, essentially arguing that any criticism she faces is solely because of her religion, immigrant status, and race. She then asks rhetorically, is anyone surprised that I am somehow deemed unworthy to speak about American foreign policy? This is particularly manipulative because nobody is saying she's unworthy to speak. They're saying she's made problematic statements that equate America with terrorist organizations. There's a massive difference between silencing someone's voice and holding them accountable for specific controversial remarks. She's conflating legitimate criticism with discrimination, which cheapens real instances of prejudice. By wrapping herself in these identity markers, she's attempting to make herself immune from accountability. It's a shield against consequences for her actual words and actions.
Is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to use that logic, well, then all those people should have just said sorry and we'd move on, right? But no, we don't do that. And let me tell you, I take a little bit of offense to what the hell.
Lisa McClain fired back with, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to use that logic, well, then all those people should have just said sorry and we'd move on, right? But no, we don't do that. McClain immediately dismantles Omar's defense strategy by pointing out the hypocrisy. Democrats don't accept simple apologies from Republicans, so why should Omar get a pass? Then she delivers this powerful line, and let me tell you, I take a little bit of offense to what the hell is wrong with me. I'll tell you there's nothing wrong with me. This is crucial because McClain is refusing to be guilt-tripped or shamed for holding Omar accountable. She's not apologizing for doing her constitutional duty. This moment represents a broader frustration among Americans who are tired of being called racist or xenophobic simply for expecting equal standards of conduct from all elected officials, regardless of their background.
Dan, I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm going to hold the Constitution. And it's very simple. We really shouldn't even have this debate. If you break the law and you follow due process, there are consequences to your actions. Even if
McClain stated firmly, I took an oath to defend the Constitution, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Again, I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm going to hold the Constitution. This is the heart of McClain's argument. This isn't about Omar's identity, it's about her oath of office and her actions. She then lays out the simple truth, and it's very simple. We really shouldn't even have this debate. If you break the law and you follow due process, there are consequences to your actions. What makes this so effective is how McClain strips away all the emotional manipulation and identity politics to reveal the core issue. It doesn't matter if you're an immigrant, a Muslim, black, white, or anything else. If you violate your oath or make statements that undermine American interests while serving on the Foreign Affairs Committee, there should be consequences. McClain is advocating for a colorblind application of standards, which is ironically what true equality looks like.
all of the diversion tactics that we would like, it doesn't change the fact that someone broke the law and that someone should be held accountable. It is disappointing, Mr. Speaker, that their own party can't hold them accountable, that they have such hypocrisy.
McClain pressed on, even if you say sorry, so we can try all of the diversion tactics that we would like, it doesn't change the fact that someone broke the law and that someone should be held accountable. She's calling out exactly what Omar is doing, using diversion tactics. The victim narrative is a diversion tactic. Instead of addressing the substance of her controversial statements, Omar deflects to claims of discrimination. McClain then delivers a devastating blow. It is disappointing, Mr. Speaker, that their own party can't hold them accountable, that they have such hypocrisy. This hits at a fundamental truth. Democrats are quick to condemn Republicans for far less offensive statements, but when it's one of their own, suddenly context matters, suddenly it's about identity, suddenly accountability goes out the window. McClain is exposing the double standard in real time, and it's uncomfortable for Democrats to witness because they know it's true.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've heard from my colleagues the reasons why the Representative Omar should be removed from this committee. But I feel like all the reasons have not just yet been stated, which is why I rise to add for the record.
Nicole Malliotakis added, "We've heard about the comments that were made regarding anti-Semitism and anti-Israeli views, but I rise to add to the record that as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I've sat there and heard the representative actually spew anti-American rhetoric as well. This is crucial testimony because Malliotakis isn't relying on hearsay or media reports. She's an eyewitness. She sat in that committee room and heard Omar firsthand. What's powerful here is that Malliotakis is expanding the scope beyond just anti-Israel statements to include anti-American rhetoric. This directly challenges Omar's claim that she's being targeted for her identity. If she were just Muslim, immigrant, and African without making controversial statements, she wouldn't be in this position. But Malliotakis is documenting a pattern of statements that question America's moral standing on the world stage, while Omar serves on a committee meant to represent American interests internationally.
Hear the representative belittle, to try to diminish the worst terrorist attack on United States soil on September 11, 2001, as some people did something, that is unacceptable as well. And I hold the same standard.
Malliotakis stated, and as a New York representative, to hear the representative belittle to try to diminish the worst of terrorist attack on United States soil on September 11th, 2001, as some people did something that is unacceptable as well. This moment is particularly powerful because Malliotakis represents New York, ground zero of 9/11. When Omar referred to the deadliest terrorist attack on American soil as some people did something, it wasn't just insensitive, it was dismissive of nearly 3,000 American lives lost. For Omar to now claim she's the victim while having made such a callous statement about actual victims shows the absurdity of her defense. Malliotakis is reminding everyone that real victimhood exists. The families who lost loved ones on 9/11 are victims. Omar minimizing their tragedy while claiming victimhood status for herself, facing congressional accountability, is deeply offensive and shows a lack of perspective about what real victimization looks like.
And I hope my colleagues will do the same to show that this is about consistency and accountability, because we should not have an individual with those views on the committee that is tasked with representing our country and our Congress to foreign nations. I yield back.
Malliotakis concluded, "So I'm being consistent here, and I hope my colleagues will do the same to show that this is about consistency and accountability, because we should not have an individual with those views on the committee that is tasked with representing our country and our Congress to foreign nations." This is the knockout punch to Omar's entire defense. Malliotakis reveals that she voted to remove a Republican colleague from a committee for similar inappropriate 9/11 comments, proving this isn't about targeting Omar for her identity. It's about maintaining standards regardless of party or background. By demonstrating her own consistency, Malliotakis exposes Omar's victim narrative as hollow. This isn't discrimination, it's equal application of accountability. The fact that Omar serves on the Foreign Affairs Committee while making statements that diminish American interests and equate the U.S. with terrorist organizations is the actual issue. Malliotakis is advocating for the common-sense position that people who represent America internationally should actually support America. This congressional exchange perfectly illustrates the collision between identity politics and accountability. Ilhan Omar's strategy was clear from the beginning: frame any criticism as an attack on her identity as a Muslim immigrant woman of color, making herself immune from consequences. It's a tactic we've seen repeatedly in modern politics. When caught making controversial statements, immediately pivot to claims of victimhood and discrimination. Lisa McClain and Nicole Maliotakis systematically dismantled this defense by bringing the focus back to Omar's actual words and actions. McClain emphasized her constitutional oath and the principle that everyone, regardless of identity, must face consequences for breaking rules or making inappropriate statements. Maliotakis provided eyewitness testimony of Omar's anti-American rhetoric and demonstrated consistency by noting she held a Republican colleague to the same standard. What makes this exchange significant is that it represents a broader cultural battle. For too long, politicians have hidden behind identity markers to avoid accountability. The American people are increasingly tired of this manipulation. They support diversity and immigration, but they also expect elected officials to uphold certain standards of conduct, especially those serving on committees dealing with foreign affairs. Omar's victim narrative ultimately fails because it requires ignoring the substance of her controversial statements. She's not being targeted for being Muslim, an immigrant, or African. She's being held accountable for specific statements that many Americans, including members of her own party, find deeply problematic. When you equate the United States with the Taliban, when you dismiss 9/11 as some people did something, when you consistently criticize America while representing it internationally, you can't be surprised when there are consequences. McClain and Maliotakis represent Americans who refuse to be emotionally manipulated into accepting lower standards. They're advocating for colorblind accountability. The same rules apply to everyone. Ironically, that's what true equality looks like, even if it means sometimes people from marginalized backgrounds face consequences for their actions just like everyone else. The hypocrisy Maliotakis exposed, where she voted to remove a Republican for similar comments, is the final nail in Omar's defense. This proves that consistent standards are possible and necessary. The fact that Democrats rushed to defend Omar while having condemned Republicans for less shows the double standard that frustrates so many Americans. You can't claim to care about accountability while simultaneously creating carve-outs for people based on their identity. This congressional clash will be remembered not just for the specific debate about Omar, but as a microcosm of the larger fight between identity politics and merit-based accountability in American institutions.